Hey everyone, I'm here with Denise Hardy from Coldwell Banker in Southern Maine. How are you doing, Denise?
Hi, David. Lovely to speak with you. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great, thank you. It's good to see you again. So I just kind of wanted to reach out and talk to you about a little bit about you, the area you work in, and how things are going for you and everyone up there in Maine with the COVID situation as well too.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure to sort of speak to you now, even though the times are I guess saying uncertain almost is a cliche right now. But yeah, just there's some changes, and um, I think adapting.
So I said Southern Maine to you, and I know that's covers a couple of areas. That would be York County and Cumberland County, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. Saco, Portland. So I'm just kind of curious. I know you work those areas and you kind of work beyond sometimes too on a case by case basis. What are some of the drivers that you see having people go to move to those areas?
Yes, well, definitely, I think the price of homes compared to other areas in southern New England and either even the metropolitan area of the middle Atlantic states, if you can stand the Four Seasons and maybe a slightly more extreme, colder version of the Four Seasons, I think that Southern Maine offers the same sort of history and feeling, especially the coastal areas, but the rural areas as well, that you might find in southern New England and the mid-Atlantic states, but a little bit less per capita population. Each town does kind of have its own personality, but taxes tend to be a little bit more manageable here as well, and just kind of a nice lifestyle.
Nice. I love the area just because, I obviously grew up in northern Massachusetts, Boston area. So that's kind of where we went to get away from things. And, my spouse and I would like to take weekends once in a while in Portland. It's a very, very livable city, fun to walk
It
around.
is. It
Um,
is so much so. And moving up for me from southern Massachusetts a few years ago, I really didn't even have an idea about everything Maine had to offer. And I've learned more about the North Shore from living in Maine. Anyone who lives in Massachusetts knows that going to the South Shore from the north is a big production, and going to
I've actually heard some people who commute from southern Maine into Boston area. Um,
yes, absolutely. Yep,
also, which
there's a
is
train, and it's actually not too bad to drive from here. I am about maybe about an hour and a half from Boston itself, but the North Shore definitely within an hour.
okay, and there's definitely enough industry and businesses in the North Shore of Boston that'll be within commuting distance. So
Absolutely.
it's kind of a nice opportunity or lifestyle opportunity to point out to people, saying like, you're going to have an hour's commute anyway into the city of Boston. What's the difference with an hour coming from Maine versus an hour coming from some
Right.
other
Even
town
if
in
you're in,
Massachusetts?
say, yeah, the Worcester area or even a bit beyond, it would be a pretty similar commute from commuting from the Worcester area or the suburbs of Worcester. And maybe even in some cases less traffic because you really don't hit traffic until you hit about that Lynn area
Okay.
in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's Lynn. That'd be like the northern 128 belt just before
Yeah.
you're getting into going up towards Gloucester and all that.
In my
I'll have
family, I
to,
like to refer to us as the northern North Shore here.
the north, the northern North
I don't know
Shore.
if the Mainers would agree with that, but
They may not like that, so this is Maine, which is interesting. So I'm curious, and what's kind of the dominant housing type up there? Is it single families, condos, mix, multifamily?
certainly single families, and that's been something for me to get used to. One of my passions is actually to become involved in some new construction duplexes and smaller multifamilies here, just to supply some housing that's affordable.
Okay.
But yeah, primarily single families. We do have some condos, especially in the coastal areas. And Maine does have the nation's oldest housing stock. So you're going to find a lot of older homes here, but new construction is experiencing quite a popular surge with, especially with heating costs being in play. You have newer construction will give you new systems and secure windows, although they do a lot of adapting to some of the older buildings as well.
Yeah, they just kind of upgrade them as they go along with like efficient windows and insulation
Right.
and all that, which I think
Maybe,
is
yeah,
part
so
of the
just
charm.
shoring up the insulation and the windows, exactly.
Yeah, that's a big thing. That's why I like what I love about Maine is it can be has retained a lot of charm to it as well.
Right.
But I do know some people have actually bought retirement condos up in Portland.
Absolutely. That's a huge trend. And my business tends to be like sort of split fold. I do
Mhm,
love helping first time home buyers and
mhm.
especially being sort of an inclusive kind of person, letting people know that maybe homeownership is within their reach. So that's fulfilling for me. But being from Massachusetts, I relate quite well to people, and I'm originally from New Jersey, so I do relate to people that might be moving from other areas and having maybe a second home at some point that they're going to retire to. That's been a big focus for a lot of my clients.
Okay, so there's definitely like a second home market up there then for some
Very, very
people.
much so. Yes.
Ah, very good. So pricing, I'm curious just for our friends who might be eyeing Portland. My spouse has said that, one of these days we're going to retire up there. And at first I said no, because I've as a kid we would go up to Maine, but now I love it and I kind of don't mind the idea of it. I don't know that it will happen, but if someone were to say, look, I would really love like a condo for the weekend or even a nice buy a farmhouse in the country and go up there on the weekend. What are some of the prices that you're seeing?
Absolutely. Well, Southern Maine does have quite a few micro markets.
Okay.
If you are along the 95 corridor, there's basically just the one road, the one highway going through Maine, north and south. And going east and west, you don't find a lot of major highways. So anything coastal, the prices I would say are much less than, say, Boston or Cape Cod or
Mhm.
certainly the Jersey Shore, that sort of thing. But they are they are rising because inventory is very low and demand does remain high. If you go a little bit out west toward, and when I say west, it could be just 20 minutes west of 95 and a half an hour from the Atlantic Ocean, you will find some more affordable things. Although, again, with inventory being low, you're finding more people that are year-round residents sort of competing for those properties as well. So inventory does remain a challenge for us here in Maine as well. But you can probably, believe it or not, get into a second smaller home, whether it's an individual home or a condo, for something certainly below 400,000, and even oceanfront remains attainable for less than $1 million, depending on the property size.
Okay. So it definitely does vary then depending on what you are where you're looking to. And micro market is a good way to look at it just because you can go into one town
Absolutely.
and be a different picture altogether.
Even within the town where I reside, which is a little mill town called Biddeford, we have UNE here, the college. Um, Biddeford still is affordable, although the prices are going up a little bit. But you can get into a home here from the low twos to the fours, a
Mhm.
comfortable year-round home, or you can get a smaller home certainly for something in the twos. As soon as you get east of UNE, you get more close to the ocean, and then things start probably around 600 to the low millions.
Okay. So there's some similarities then to parts of Boston depending on which part you're looking in. I know down here in the kind of the Arlington, Belmont, Lexington area, average is about 800 uh,
Yes,
for a home, with it obviously going stellar in one area direction or another, depending on
yes,
the town that you're
yes.
in.
It really does. It's incredible. So it's kind of nice to have some relationships with agents in different markets, both in Maine and New England,
Mhm.
so that we can help each other, help our clients that might be new to the area to sort of zero in on what they might be looking for and understand, the sort of micro market situation.
Yeah, it's interesting because even though in from like north of Boston, New Hampshire, Maine, there are those state lines, and there are some agents who actually obtain dual certifications, dual licensing actually, and that can be expensive.
Yes,
But definitely, if you're like on the border areas, like in some parts of northern Massachusetts, you'll have agents advertising that they can be licensed in both areas as well
correct. Where
too.
I lived in Southern Mass, probably 10 minutes from Rhode Island, the same thing happened where people would have their license in Rhode Island and Mass as well.
Hmm But it's helpful, and absent having one of those licenses, you just get to know agents in other areas, and and that helps out as well too, which is great. So I'm curious about condo prices then. What would those be like? Because you're saying around 4 to 1 million, depending on where you are, for a single family.
Right.
Um,
Condos certainly are less, and their amenities can vary widely, and their association fees can vary widely. You have certain coastal towns like Wells and Old Orchard Beach, each having their own personalities, which
mm,
offer a pretty high amount of condos that are available. And you can get into a cute little condo in Old Orchard for between 150 and two quite easily.
hmm, okay. And that would be like a 2 or 3 bedroom condo.
That would be a 2 or 3 bedroom year-round condo.
Mhm,
Wells, you have to be a little bit more sort of aware. There are quite a few seasonal condos in Wells that are available in the high ones to low threes.
mm,
And then a lot of the clients that I've been working with are thinking of the same sort of plans that you had mentioned, where they want something with a possible rental or a getaway, but maybe they want to retire there. So they'd rather have a year round condo. So I kind of lean more towards those for
mm,
my buyers and recommend them for resale as well. And
mhm.
Wells does have both.
Okay, that's really interesting then. And Portland obviously gets a little bit more pricier than for the condos, I would imagine.
Port- Portland condo markets actually are a little higher, although I've seen some older units that could need a little work in the
Mhm,
low twos, but probably the upper twos to about four for a condo, and then maybe even a little higher if it's got a ton of amenities, or you go towards Cape Elizabeth, which is a higher priced area as well. I think my primary concern is just kind of listening to the buyer and see what they're looking for, but I
mm.
do want to always ensure that there will be resale value, whether it be in the long or short term.
Oh, okay, and long term could be like 10 years or something like that. And
Yes, well, especially with everything sort of the current times,
mm,
resale could be, a little bit variable over the
mm.
next year or two. But I do look for the long term, certainly, and then the short term as much as anyone can do.
I'm curious, do you see things such as bidding wars up there, or is it a little bit less crazy?
Oh wow, yeah. So that it's almost like Maine is a little bit more polar or bipolar than what I experienced in Massachusetts, although it's been a few years since I practiced real estate in Massachusetts.
Mm,
However, right now I've seen bidding wars for the newer, and again, Maine having older housing stock. So anything that's less than 15 years old and is kind of that $400,000 open concept home that just kind of everyone feels is popular with sort of the HGTV kind of a home you'd see. Those, I had a client that just went under contract and we lost to higher or different offers on about 6 homes before that. And
okay.
this is really what a lot of people are going through now. You can kind of get around or think outside the box for people that are willing to look at unique kind of homes. So maybe an older farmhouse, but those would have probably smaller rooms, smaller closets, maybe one bathroom. So things that we sort of take for granted now. In this market, I've tried to encourage people to at least look at maybe other options to get something affordable.
Yeah, because sometimes even though the house, even if you want like 2 full bathrooms, you might just be able to add one
Right,
to their home.
exactly.
And I think if people are a little bit, it sounds like if people are a little bit flexible um,
Then there
about
are
their
there
needs
are
and needs.
options. Yeah.
Okay.
And what you look for with that is just sort of really good foundations
Mhm.
and level floors and good systems. And then yeah, some of the things can be adapted.
Um, what are some of the recent restrictions that you've been experiencing with real estate? I know in Massachusetts we were designated as essential. I've heard stories going on about restrictions in Maine, but I don't really know what they are. So as of today, what are
Right.
things looking like?
So yes, as of today, May 15th, we do have the governor has put into it. Maine as well has us as realtors as an essential service,
Okay.
but they did place quite a few protocols on agents and realtors that we need to observe and have our clients observe. There have been sort of tightening down on showings. We're not having any open houses in the state,
Mm,
and just sort of trying to comply with all the COVID restrictions. So especially in a house for a showing where the seller still lives there, we're especially cognizant, and we want to make sure that any buyer or person that goes sees the house has driven by it and has seen a virtual tour, which is becoming more popular if available, and obviously is not experiencing any COVID symptoms, limiting the amount of people. And then we're wearing a lot of PPE, what I like to affectionately call my Silkwood kits. So we're using masks and gloves, hand sanitizer, and then shoe coverings. Again, shoe coverings being a more respectful thing for houses where the seller still occupies the home.
Okay, yeah, that's definitely important. So I think the no open house rule is almost universal in a lot of
Yeah,
places right now.
yeah.
Of course, it does depend on the market, and even in parts of Massachusetts, it can vary by town.
Okay. Yeah,
Where
in Maine, I think
we do
pretty
show.
much the whole state, and that makes sense to me. So
So are you finding then that sellers are saying, look, I need to move, but as long as we take these, precautions, that's the best that we can do under these circumstances. And
that's correct. And again, the inventory was already low, and it
okay,
was a seller's market. And sellers, I think, are just looking at whether they want to sell now because it is a seller's market and take advantage of the
mm,
um, the prices that they'll get, especially people that are downsizing maybe. But
yeah,
then some people do have to move; they get a job relocation, or life just happens, and so those are the people that really are needing to sell. Again, the seller's market does help them, but we really want to be respectful of their home as we go through the sales process. And I just take it kind of individually and see, you know, maybe sort of setting limitations on sewing. A lot of people, especially in those more popular homes, are just doing, showings on 1 or 2 days and then accept offers.
I know there are all these safety precautions and closings are even looking different.
Yeah,
I've had some recent closings where don't really go to the closing because it's
right.
more like a paper type situation. It's
Yeah,
done.
exactly. Me too. And we had at the beginning where I would go and stand outside, and then it just got a little bit more and more strict. And as we realized we could process things, I'm not really doing closings at the moment.
I'm curious, do you think there, even though it's a hard time and for some people a tragic time, do you see any efficiencies perhaps coming out of this that you hope will remain in place moving forward?
You know what I really do? One of the really great things that I'm still kind of learning to do how I want to handle it is
Mm,
virtual showings,
yeah,
where you can just have the 3D camera and you can actually look closely at the things in the home, or whether my husband, who has a much better steady hand than I, takes a video if you want to look at the land or the property around as well. And I think that's a great tool to make buyers feel more comfortable now, but also later on, just to show people that are coming from different areas a little bit more than just the standard still photos.
yeah, because you can't really get a sense of the area or the feel of it too. I know that I've worked with people moving in from out of state, and I've been doing videos for a little while where they say, look, I know you can't be here, so why don't I just do a walkthrough, even at the time, which is my iPhone.
Yep.
Something simple, but sometimes simple is best. And you go
Well,
through
you're
and
kind of my hero because you were thinking of this ahead of time.
well, it's kind of come up a little bit earlier, I think, because I'm a relocation agent as well too. So it's like with people moving in from coming in from California or overseas, there's and sometimes they have to not just come here to find a house, but they need to hit the ground running
Their
because they
whole
kids that
lifestyle,
want to
yes,
get
the
into
school,
school and
yeah,
start jobs. So you
healthcare services, everything, yeah.
yeah, so they got to get it all set up. So I figured, well, at least do some videos that way they can at least be able to decide, okay, when we land, we'll do an offer on this. And sometimes I've done offers remotely as too, but it's been more the exception.
Yeah, yes,
To how
exactly.
things get done. But I think in the future, I will continue with some of that video previews, like the Matterports and stuff, because it's a fantastic way for buyers to get an appreciation of the overall space
Yes,
um, without having to have millions of people go through an open house. Um, and then take their time going from one open house to another. Because I think for some buyers, it can be physically tiring to see like five
exactly.
houses in a day, you know?
Yeah. Oh, and just You have a if you have the video tour too, or an
Mm,
interactive tour, you can always go back and look, because if you are seeing 5 houses in a day, I know when I've done that
mm.
with buyers, it gets overwhelming, and you're like, was that the pink one or the brown one? Yeah, so it's just confusing.
They mix them all together, so that's the
Mhm.
hard part about it, and that's just
Yeah,
human.
the little driveway one with the big bath. What is it? Yes, exactly.
So it
So
can
with
be
the
a
video,
significant
you can actually look
conversation.
back. It's nice.
Yeah, exactly. You can say, no, that one doesn't have the pink bathroom. This one has a blue
Right,
one, or whatever.
right.
So
Exactly.
I think moving forward, I do hope some of the stuff that we come across that are offer more flexibility and in the processes of how we handle things does stay in place, but minus the COVID. This has been really very informative. Thank you for taking the time to speak
Mhm.
with me, Denise. And
Well,
if
it's
they
been
wanted
lovely.
to reach out to you, what would be the best way for them to reach you?
Yep, they can always just email me, and that's denise.hardy at nemoves, newenglandmoves.com.
Perfect. Awesome. So again, thank you for your time. Have a great day. Stay
Thank
safe and
you.
well.
Thank you, everyone. All the best, and all the best to you, David. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.